and welcome. I'm Chelsea Schwartz.
I'm Yael Tygiel.
And this is Streaming Wars, the show that helps you wade through the endless sea of streaming content. And today, we're going to talk about Disney Plus. And if you know anything about me, you know I love Disney. So, in the past, we've talked about HBO Max. We've broken down Netflix, Disney Plus. It's your turn. So, last year, November 12th, Disney Plus launched here in the United States, and slowly over the next year, they opened to a bunch of other countries, and they're still rolling out. But in the meantime, they've gained about 60.5 million subscribers as of August. That's the most recent number we've gotten.
There are a bunch of options here to getting Disney Plus, depending on who you are and what you have going on. You can get it by the month at $6.99 a month, or by a year for $70. Although if you're a sports person and you want ESPN Plus and Hulu, you can get the whole package for $12.99 a month. I am a Verizon subscriber and have the first year free. I know you got a special deal, Chelsea.
Yeah, last year at D23 Expo, which is like Disney's giant press release convention, basically. It's their press kit for what's happening in the next couple of years. They did a special D23 like members deal, and you got 3 years of Disney Plus. It basically was equivalent to 1 year of Disney Plus being free. But if you broke it down, like I'm paying like $3 a month, but I paid all of it up front last year. So I'm not making a payment to Disney Plus until 2022, which is epic. And really helps when the pandemic hit, because I was like, yay, free Disney Plus, free. But so there's a lot of options. So that 60 million subscribers, you've got Verizon people that are on for free. You've got a bunch of D23 members, because they extended that deal online after the convention for a month. That also just got a really cheap deal. So they're not necessarily making money yet.
Right. But they do have a lot to offer, especially if you are a Disney person. If you're a Disney person, you have this. I'm sure you do, because this is where you find your favorite classics. You find the DComs, you find Star Wars and Marvel. The Simpsons are there. This is for the Disney
animation movies. You've got the Pixar library and stuff like that. And while a lot of stuff is still missing, their plan was a slow content rollout over 5 years, and we're only about to be 1 year into it. There's still a really impressive library. There's a little something for everyone, I feel like.
Yeah, I know that I'm still waiting. It took forever for us to get the X-Men movies, and they rolled them out very, very slowly. That said, they did have the X-Men animated series to, keep me happy until then. I'm still waiting for Pepper Ann. I don't know if or when that show is going to be added.
Personally, I'm waiting for the 90s Mickey Mouse Club, because I need to see JT and everybody like back in their glory of when I was a kid. That was my jam. It's supposed to come. I think it was already supposed to be here by now. I don't know what the holdup is on that one. But yeah, it's a great point about the X-Men movies, because the Fox merger is just starting to be incorporated into the Disney Plus channel. And we're getting movies like Eddie the Eagle coming soon, and Princess Bride's already up there and stuff like that.
Yes. Speaking of movies, they did release movies there. I assume a lot of it is due to the pandemic, and that's how we ended up there. We started with Onward, and
yeah, because unfortunately Onward just had like a window, like 3 days that it was in the movie theaters before the pandemic shut it down. And this was so unfortunate for this film. Like, I have a feeling Onward would have blown up as a much bigger title had the pandemic not hit. But Disney Plus immediately announced, hey, give us 2 weeks and it's going to be on Disney Plus. That kind of paved the way for theatrical releases to start hitting streaming platforms, I feel like. I think Disney was one of the first people to just say, hey, we're just going to move it straight to our service.
Absolutely. And they did that, test with Mulan to see how that worked out. And I think they realized that they should bring their properties to their channel. And that's why we're going to get Soul.
Yes, we're getting Soul on Christmas Day. Yep. I was like, I'm actually really looking forward to that, but with the cautionary tale that it's Pixar, and I'm probably going to be horribly depressed and cry, because Pixar likes to play with our emotions. But besides this library, besides getting these theatrical releases that are coming to Disney Plus also has originals, and they've got a lot of them. And yes, there's been quite a lot of docu-series, not all of them great. I was like, but things like Prop Culture is incredibly entertaining and nostalgic. It's I really hope it gets a second season. We've got The Mandalorian, which is their first step into Lucasfilm territory, which they've got more Star Wars series coming, including the holiday special that's coming out next month, which is not just a Star Wars holiday special, but Lego. All right.
It's a choice. It's a choice.
Yeah, it is a choice. And then The Imagineering Story. This was actually a documentary, a 6-part documentary that was incredible. And I know they've got a Pixar documentary coming out soon. I'm wondering if it's within the same production team as Imagineering Story. I'm very excited to learn more about that.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to all the MCU TV that's coming out. WandaVision is supposedly dropping this December. We'll see if that happens. I'm very excited. And there were some surprising things, that they released. I think you really loved Second Born Royals. I was surprised at how much I loved that as well. Earth to Ned was another, I would say, surprisingly good piece. They're releasing.
I really liked the talk show format with Earth to Ned was done in a very clever way, so it didn't have to be topical to what's happening in the world. And Secret Society of Second Born Royals was one of the best films they've put on Disney Plus yet as an original. And I'm not including like Mulan in the theatrical releases. I mean an actual Disney Plus original. And speaking of Marvel, like, I know we're looking forward to WandaVision, but I have to mention it every time we talk about Marvel. The Loki series is coming. I mean, I've been waiting, I think now 3 years since they announced this, and now unfortunately I have to wait even more thanks to this pandemic, but like, Loki series, woohoo! But yeah, so I really feel like Disney Plus has something for everyone. I understand that like a lot of people think Disney and they just think Frozen and Snow White, stuff like that, but there are more adult, I guess I could say, oriented programming on this. You also have movies like Sister Act, 3 Men and a Baby, like there's that 90s nostalgia. There's some really crazy films from like the 70s that if you really dive deep are in Disney Plus. What do you think, yay or nay on Disney Plus for people?
I think if you love Disney, if you love Star Wars, and if you love Marvel, 100% yes. If you are not into any of those, then I get it. I get why you're like, I'm going to pass. Also, if you have kids, you should have this. This is like, you can let them run loose and pick something and not have to worry that they're accidentally going to pick something inappropriate for them.
Yeah. And again, this is just the beginning of the service. They've got a content rollout plan that went all the way to 2025. We're only in 2020. So we'll see what happens because I feel like their originals are just starting to get good. And speaking of that, so National Geographic just launched their first scripted original on Disney Plus, all about the lives of the Mercury 7. The series is called The Right Stuff. Episode 4 dropped yesterday. And with us today is Eloise Mumford, who plays Trudy Cooper, the incredible wife of Gordon Cooper. Or for you Once Upon a Time fans, she's playing opposite of Captain Hook, Colin O'Donoghue. And speaking of Colin, what's it like being married to Gordon Cooper, Eloise?
Oh my gosh, I thought you were gonna say what it's like being married to Colin. I was like, Colin's dreamy. Gordon Cooper. Look, Gordon Cooper was a complicated dude, like all the astronauts were, and their marriage was really challenging. I think that they were bonded very deeply on their love of flying. Trudy Cooper was a pilot, just like Gordo, and they had that sort of equal relationship that I think that, I don't want to say it was rare at the time, but I think portrayals of that are rare at the time. And so that was really fun to delve into, but it was a real roller coaster, their marriage. And Trudy sacrificed a lot in order to try to make it work.
Awesome.
Yeah. What kind of research did you do and how do you prepare to play a role of Trudy Cooper, especially because she's a real person?
So I was overwhelmed in the best sort of way to take on Trudy Cooper. She was a phenomenal woman, and it was incredible the amount of information that there is obviously around the space program. And we all showed up to set having done a ton of different research. The research that I really delved into, obviously I read the book. I went as deep as I could about all the information that there was about Trudy and Gordo. Gordo wrote a book which I read. And then I sort of like went left a little bit, and I started researching the women who would have inspired Trudy Cooper. All of the pilots from the 1920s, the 1930s, the 1940s, like Amelia Earhart and Ruth Elder. There's just these spectacular women who are pilots who are known in history, but they aren't as well known as they should be, honestly. And I figured that those are the women who would inspire Trudy. And so I wanted to draw inspiration from them as well and fill her spirit with their spirit.
I love that.
I had chills through my whole body, just like that. When you were like, I looked into the women from like the 20s and the 30s, like it's incredible how many unsung heroes we have as like women role models that like no one really knows the stories of. And speaking of, Trudy herself was truly ahead of her time, like paving the way for many women to come in what was a male-dominated field. What did you learn from playing Trudy that perhaps you apply to everyday life?
Oh my gosh, I learned so much from Trudy, mainly to be bold and brave and persistent. And I thought a lot about women like Trudy who made strides towards equality that they would never actually see realized in their own lifetimes. Trudy is no longer alive, but the space program has more women than ever in it now, and will continue to. Or now the next mission is to put a woman on the moon, and which should be, it's about time. But there's throughout the centuries, there's women like Trudy who have fought so hard for equality and did it in the name of future generations, not necessarily for themselves. I mean, obviously they would have liked it for themselves, but they did it for their daughters and their daughters' daughters. And so that is something that I've really drawn inspiration from, that, you have to invest in something much bigger than yourself. And these sorts of fights toward equality for women, for people of color, they take longer perhaps than our lifetimes, and yet we still must persist.
Absolutely. So Trudy wanted to be a female astronaut. What about Eloise? What would you do? Would you venture into space?
If you had asked me that question a year ago before we started filming this, I would have been like, nah, it's not for me. It's not for me. But now I really would. Just something about seeing the stars from a different perspective, and something about feeling how tiny we are in this universe. I mean, we all feel tiny all the time in this universe if you think about like the expanse of it all. But I think being out in space, I would be so down. Plus I'm a total science nerd. So that part of it, I think, would just really titillate me.
Amazing.
I know the boys got to do some really cool experiences in training and prep for the show itself. What was the coolest moment for you?
What's rad is that I actually got included in that.
Awesome.
Which I have to tell you was a way more emotional experience than I was expecting, because, they were like, oh, well, Trudy was a pilot. She should go along and, sit in the F-104s and like go out, do all the stuff that the boys are doing. And I actually was moved to tears the first time that I stepped out with them around all these airplanes and stuff, because I was like, man, I'm having an opportunity that someone like Trudy never would have had. Like, she wanted so badly to be included with those astronauts. And the fact that I was deeply aware of how much progress has been made. And it was really cool to get to see all that stuff. I think the most powerful thing for me was standing on the launch pads where they actually launched these rockets from, and getting to like look at the cracked concrete underneath our feet, and it's so real, and it's so humble in the weird way, and that's where history was made. That part of it was really, really cool.
That's so amazing. And this is such an incredible role, and it's such an amazing story. Like, I'm really proud of National Geographic for jumping in and telling this story, not just from the angle of let's get to know these men, but it's showcasing the wives and a lot of the powerful women too. And thank you for being such a great role model for that.
Thank you. Yeah. I think that's what's so cool. This, history is written by the winners, right? And in a lot of cases, the winners are white men. And so our understanding of this part of history is mainly through the eyes of white men. And I think it's really exciting that our show delves into other parts of it, because there are a lot more people involved. And there, as the story continues on through the years, more and more so, and getting an opportunity to tell that side of the story, I think it's really important. It's really important to show, the ways in which people were restricted from access, and the ways in which they really affected a lot of it, because they did. I mean, Gordo wouldn't have been an astronaut if it hadn't been for Trudy, just like straight up, he couldn't have been. And I think it's really cool that we start seeing those sides of it.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. Everybody can check out The Right Stuff with Eloise Mumford, streaming now on Disney+. Thank you, Eloise.
Thank you so much. You guys are so great.
Thanks.
Wow, that was so incredible having Eloise here. I mean, as you can tell, huge fan of The Right Stuff. We are only halfway through this season on Disney+. It is such an incredibly powerful true story. And like I said, talking to Eloise, I love that they're focusing on the women behind the men as like a B plot to this, and just really showcasing who these people are and not just focused on the space program. It's definitely worth a watch. In my opinion, The Right Stuff is Disney Plus's #1 original.
Wow. Big words. Speaking of things that we are excited to watch, let's head into streaming roundup and talk about what's worth watching. Let's start off with Marvel's Hellstrom. I know you are a big fan of this show.
Well, again, I'm a big fan of Marvel in general, as we just talked about, because, you know, Loki series is coming. But so Marvel's Hellstrom is Marvel's first official horror release, right? I don't do spooky, I don't do horror, psychological thrillers. I was a little nervous. I was like, I want to watch it, it's Marvel, but like, I don't want to be terrified. And it was handled with kid gloves. And if this is what Marvel is planning to do in terms of the MCU horror films, like the Doctor Strange movie, I'm in.
Wow. I love that. On a completely opposite side of the spectrum, I want to talk about Equal on HBO Max. This is a 4-part docu-series with a dramatization included. It is narrated by Billy Porter, and it is the story of queer rights history. And it is amazing. It goes further back than you probably have heard. You know, it explains how we got to Stonewall and then continues. And I think the thing that I love about it is, I don't know about your history class in high school, but this felt like the kind of thing we would watch in history class, but had a better explanation to what was going on. And I recommend, if you're a history buff, to check it out. If you want to understand what's going on with LGBTQ plus rights, check it out. I would also say, if you're a teacher, this is a docu-series you should start showing in high school history.
That's a really strong recommendation.
Yeah. I also have to recommend Halloween. If you're in the mood for that, A Babysitter's Guide to Monster Hunting is officially out. This is going to be the first of a series. Like it's based on a book series. You know that they're going to do more. They introduce a whole mythology in it, and you're going to want to see more. Babysitter's Guide to Monster Hunting is about a girl who's babysitting, and the kid that she's babysitting gets kidnapped by a monster, and she ends up in this world of monster hunters who are babysitters. It's really cute. It's very much a like kids scary movie. So I was not scared.
Right up both of our alleys.
Yep, it was perfect. And it's fun. It kind of feels a little labyrinthy in that the kid gets kidnapped and now she has to go find them. And the villain
but I love Labyrinth, so I'm okay with that.
Right. And the villain who has the child is very, I would say there's a little bit of Bowie in him. So I definitely 100% recommend, if you're looking for something not too scary for Halloween, or you have kids that want a Halloween thing, A Babysitter's Guide to Monster Hunting, the very first one of a series, I'm telling you now, on Netflix. Check it out.
And if you don't have Netflix and you do have HBO Max and you want the same type of not too scary Halloween content, The Witches, the remake of the classic Angelica Houston Witches, is now available on HBO Max. This is part of a series trend of theatrical releases moving away from movie theaters and coming to a streaming service. So this was originally supposed to be released by Warner Brothers into theaters. I was like, and then they just moved it into their service, the way that Disney Plus has been doing that with their titles. But it's good. It's not too scary. I liked it better than the original. What about you?
I recently just rewatched the original. I made it 30 minutes in and couldn't believe we still hadn't like moved the plot forward. And when I watched the remake, which I loved, I feel like so much brighter and more colorful, and really modernized this story. Even though it's still set in the past, it modernized it in a really nice way. And at 30 minutes in, we were at the exact same point, but I felt like so much more had happened already. So I really enjoyed this. And if you've read the book.
My only downfall on this one was the overuse of the CGI. At moments, I was just like, it's too much. Or maybe it wasn't polished enough because it was just very overt and in your face.
I think kids are not going to mind it, and it's going to be perfect for them. If you read the book, you're going to love it.
Absolutely. And then speaking of, movies that move from the theatrical release to a streamer, The Trial of the Chicago 7. My goodness, this film is award worthy. They've actually already done their award qualifying run in a small limited theatrical release. I'm telling you, this deserves all of the awards next year, especially Sacha Baron Cohen. He plays Abby Hoffman. He's incredible in this role. I am a new convert to loving Sacha because of the genius that came through him in this. But it also stars Eddie Redmayne and Joseph Gordon-Levitt and this incredible ensemble cast. Like, literally everyone is amazing. And it's based on a true story that happened in the late 60s. It's very timely. It's not heavy like other educational pieces that we're all watching right now. It's mixed, it's edited, it's written well enough that, like, in between the, oh, I'm so frustrated that boils my blood moments, you're also kind of enjoying music or laughing.
Yeah, this is an Aaron Sorkin project, so you know that, like, you got to be listening because there's a lot of words. It's very dialogue heavy, but the way that they put it together, using footage from what actually happened in Chicago mixed in with their film, was really clever. It's not too much. They used it very limitedly, and they shot it in Chicago. It's super, super timely, which is kind of disgusting in that this happened so long ago.
And we're still dealing with it.
Yeah. I will say it's on Netflix, and get ready. You're going to want to watch this. Everyone's going to be talking about it.
Absolutely. Like we said, this is the buzzworthy. This is award worthy. This is what you need to be watching. And it took them 13 years to make and put out this film. And Steven Spielberg really wanted this to come out before the election, and Netflix made it happen. So good job, Netflix. We're excited. I can't wait for everyone. If you've seen it, leave us a comment. Write me on Instagram or whatever. I want to talk to people about this movie. And speaking of Sacha Baron Cohen, we've got another Sacha movie that also just came out this week.
Yes, Borat subsequent movie film is out on Amazon Prime Video. That's right, there is a second Borat movie. I know that Chelsea is not a fan.
Not a fan.
Yes, would you like to tell us why?
You know what? Borat has always kind of hit me in the wrong places, if you will. I'm just not a fan of the character. I don't find it funny. I get that there's an audience for it. But, I gave this one a try, especially after seeing Sacha in The Trial of the Chicago 7. I was just like, I've learned so much about Sacha as a person that this film is also timely. It talks about 2020 and Trump and Pence and all of those things that we're currently dealing with. It was actually filmed throughout the course of 2020. So I was waiting for some kind of other strong message to come out of it, but it's classic Borat. And so not for me.
Yeah, I'm not a big cringe humor person. That said, I loved the first movie when it came out. I was also in a different place in my life, as we all were, and maybe at that point thought that it was okay to do what they were doing because it was for humor and it was to make a point. And this time, I'm less enjoying it. That said, if you like Borat's humor, if you like cringe humor and watching, Jackass, I feel like if you're a Jackass fan, this is for you. This is the movie for you. And it's really impressive, I will say, as such a prominent character that is so iconic and recognizable, to still be able to pull similar stuff is impressive.
Definitely. Also on our skipping list this week, Hubie Halloween. All right, we've talked about this like twice before in our show. At first, we were really excited because we said it. Adam Sandler movies can be hit or miss. We mentioned it in our Halloween streaming options because it is a Halloween streaming option. Unfortunately, this was a miss.
I'm so bummed. Honestly, I think that this is another cringe humor type of property, and it could have been done in a different way. I think if Adam Sandler wasn't back to doing his silly voices, I think it would have been better. I think if it was,
I completely agree with that. That character voice he's doing, I was like, the entire film, I was like, I hate this voice. Like, I don't like when you do this, and it's hard to understand you.
Yeah, I think that if he had made Hubie a grounded character, the rest of the film would have been just fine and played well with it and would have been enjoyable.
Yes, agreed. And so that brings us to this week's headlines. So if you paid attention, we didn't have a show last week, so we have a couple of announcements from the last 2 weeks to really get into, which is exciting. Apple TV Plus being the first exciting announcement. If you are an Apple user that purchased a new device within the last year, you got a free year of Apple TV Plus. And thanks to Apple's generosity, they've extended that year through January now, giving people free Apple TV Plus through the holidays.
Speaking of the holidays, I know you're super excited about what they have picked up for Apple TV Plus. Tell us about it.
So the Charlie Brown holiday specials that always air on linear TV every year will no longer be on those broadcast stations. It is all exclusively moving to Apple TV Plus. That means Charlie Brown's Thanksgiving special, a Charlie Brown Christmas, It's a Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown, the Halloween special, all only on Apple TV Plus. If you're watching this going, but I don't have Apple TV Plus, guess what? It's going to be available for free to all users, each one of those for a limited time.
Yeah, the limited time thing is a little bit surprising to me. It's an interesting choice, but I appreciate that if I have my annual Charlie Brown that I need to see, I can check it out.
Absolutely. But speaking of something I'm way more excited about, even than as much as I love Christmas, and everyone knows I'm excited about Christmas, Willow is getting a series on Disney Plus. I gotta say that again. Willow, let it sink in. Willow, 1980s, Val Kilmer, Warwick Davis, I'm the leader. I decide which way we go. Getting its own TV series on Disney Plus. I'm so excited.
I'm very happy for you. I want to talk a little bit about HBO Max, which released the trailer for The Flight Attendant, starring Kaylee Cuoco, who you probably know from The Big Bang Theory, or if you're a nerd, you know her as the voice of Harley Quinn in the new animated series. This series looks, it's like a mystery, it's dark, it's sexy, and it's from the people who gave us You. So yeah, it's going to be crazy.
I was already excited. Are we talking Sarah Gamble?
I'm not sure. It just says from the producers of You. It did not specifically say Sarah Gamble.
Okay. I was already excited about this. And we did get the trailer. It looks great. I'm excited to talk more about it when it gets closer to coming out.
Yes, I can't wait to see it. Speaking of things I can't wait to see, Hulu has picked up, we were talking about movies skip in the theater. Hulu has picked up Happiest Season. It's Clea Duvall's directorial and writing, not debut, but project from Sony. Instead of hitting theaters, this film is coming to Hulu, and it stars Kristen Stewart and Mackenzie Davis. So I'm very excited for this, and it's going to be on Hulu.
Speaking of, well, not speaking of anything, really, just moving on to Netflix. Netflix keeps buying different intellectual properties to create content with. We've talked about this a lot. They've now picked up Elf on the Shelf. Yes, I'm talking about that Elf on the Shelf, the product you're all thinking of right now. And I guess they're going to create a series of content that will involve, I believe they're doing maybe a series and a film, but it's going to be a whole franchise of Elf on the Shelf.
Yep, because we need more Christmas.
Yes, we do.
I'm done. After that, I'm done talking. It's your show now.
Well, speaking of Netflix, first look at Shonda Rhimes' new series. This is part of the Shondaland deal that's coming to Netflix. This is her first series dropping. Bridgerton looks really adorable to me.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Shonda's work, so I'm excited to see it. But let's talk about Paramount Plus. That's right.
Yeah,
they have
news.
news.
We have some big Paramount Plus news. So a CBS All Access becoming Paramount Plus. So we've talked about in the past in our HBO Max breakdown, actually, in our episode about why you should get HBO Max, I said coming soon, there was going to be a Grease series, a musical series. I was really looking forward to it. Well, HBO Max said, you know what? We don't want the series anymore. And now Paramount Plus is going to put it on their platform instead. So that's already one check mark for me wanting to get Paramount Plus.
Yeah, they really have decided, hey, we got to get people to check us out. So what can we do? So exciting. So much news coming out. Thank you again to Eloise Mumford from Disney Plus's The Right Stuff for joining us today to talk about The Right Stuff and Disney Plus. Don't forget to like this video, comment below what you think about Sacha Baron Cohen in any of his roles. Let us know. And don't forget to subscribe to That Hashtag Show for more. We'll see you next time.
See you next week.